I'm Ellen Brown, President of the Rotary Club of Harrisburg. We're part of an international community and humanitarian service organization comprised of 1.4 million members in over 44,000 clubs in more than 200 countries. Rotary leads the world in volunteer service. For more than 112 years, the Rotary Club of Harrisburg has organized impactful local service projects that changes lives and creates hope where it's needed most. Please join us at a Rotary luncheon at the Hilton, service on a Monday, or a Rotary alternate meeting to meet our members who are waiting to welcome you. You can find out more about us at hbgrotary.org. Please like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope to welcome you as a member soon.
Good afternoon, everyone. It brings me a great pleasure and an honor to introduce our speaker for today. I joked with Dave that I wanted to do a speech and say the most powerful Democrat in the building. The governor decided to show up next door. But Dave, for those of you who don't know, is born and bred here in South Central Pennsylvania, a graduate of nearby Middletown, and lives here in the city of Harrisburg in a new district, right? A district that stretches through South Harrisburg. And he's going to talk a little bit about that throughout Steelton, High Spire, and a little bit beyond, including the airport, right? You've got airport, Penn State, Harrisburg. Then you've got South Market of the city of Harrisburg. Just a really diverse district, and one with a lot of opportunities and a lot of challenges, no doubt. Prior to his service in the State House, Representative Madsen was a Harrisburg City Councilman here for 5 years in the city of Harrisburg. In the words of President Ellen, was critical for the Veterans Outreach Project, and I always found as an approachable individual that if you had an issue, you could bring it to him, and he's brought that with him to the House. One of the items that we look at the chamber when we're evaluating candidates and individuals in terms of what we want them to get an endorsement, we look for folks that are first and foremost civil and collaborative. And I think those are two things that can really describe Representative Madsen. He's had an open door, open cell phone, much to his chagrin, maybe sometimes for me, but always willing to have a conversation, to discuss, and he's even brought us legislation to kind of workshop, which is great in a laboratory democracy. And we're really excited for not only his first term, but for his career going forward. So without further ado, I bring you Representative David Madsen.
Well, good afternoon, Rotarians. My name is Dave Madsen. I have the privilege of being the state representative in the 104th Legislative District. And Ryan gave a good overview of the district. South Harrisburg, Swadera Township, Paxton, Steelton, High Spire, and Penn State, Harrisburg. So it's exciting for me, especially coming from Middletown, because the way I like to describe the district is where I grew up is the beginning and the end of the district, depending on your perspective, and where I live as an adult with my family is the beginning and the end of the district on the 2300 block of Market Street, and then everything in between. So I was a labor activist for a long time. So the AFSCME Conference Center, got the starts of my career there. All the small businesses I see when I travel throughout the district, I have fond memories. I used to go to Pizza Delight on Dairy Street with my friends before going to the movies and the mall before that was a thing. I remember fond memories at the Harrisburg East Mall. And does anybody remember Pogs? Remember those? There's like those little disc things, and then you got a slammer, and then you would pop them over. I remember tugging on my mom's shoulder, like wanting to buy those at the East Mall. So just lots of memories throughout the district. I am a proud product of the Sharp Shopper. If you're not familiar with the Sharp Shopper, some really good discount drinks. I still go there for my drinks. So yeah, I just love and the honor of representing this district and being a product of it. So today I'll share a little bit about my background, my experience during my first year, my vision of the future, and how I believe groups like this can contribute. So as I discussed, I'm a South Central PA native. I moved to the area when I was 6. My mom took a job at the Milton Hershey School, teaching middle school. So I have a lot of fond memories of being around the campus over the summers. And as a kid, Founders Hall, had a lot of fun there, going to the park. And I vividly remember when we first moved to the area, driving around and smelling the chocolate that was at Hershey And then they, I asked them, I was like, what is this? And it's a chocolate factory. It's where they make chocolate. And when we were driving to Middletown to our new house, I saw TMI in the background, and I thought, oh, okay, that's where they make clouds. Is through Thailand. That must be a cloud factory. But yeah, I graduated in Middletown in 2004. Maybe some of you may recall, we had a soccer team that won states. I was a member of that team. So that was a really, really exciting time to be a product of Middletown. And Ben Olsen, the famous soccer player that played for DC United and became a coach, grew up right down the street from me. So when he was at Virginia State, me and my friends would go to his house, and he really early and just try to see if he would get an autograph. And it was a super big deal if he was there and he signed it, and it was exciting. So I just always sort of grew up with this idea that big things could happen even in a small town like Middletown. My background's a bit unique. I'm half Black and half Danish. So my father is Danish citizen. I have dual citizenship of both the United States and Denmark. So I did some undergrad in Denmark after I finished in Middletown. Finished up getting my BA at Mansfield University, or as we like to call it, the Harvard of the Northern Tier. And post-graduation, I returned to Denmark and earned my master's in European studies, which is essentially comparative politics. So I specialized in comparing the Scandinavian model with the United States model. So when Bernie Sanders was talking a lot about his platform, I had a lot of ideas there. I didn't agree with everything. So it's just, but yeah, that was my background there. And after grad school, I came back home and got involved with local campaigns and worked as a field organizer. And eventually I got a union position at the Pennsylvania Department of Revenue and became a labor advocate. And eventually, and I do see some familiar faces from the United Way, I had the privilege of being the United Way labor representative for a few years. And then moved my way up to the Pennsylvania AFL-CIO as the Community Services and Education Director. All the while, I was serving on council. And also, one of the reasons that got me to serving on council was when I was going to labor conferences, I was introduced to a program called Path to Power. So Path to Power is a program to recruit card-carrying union members to run for local office. And so when there was a vacancy in 2017, I decided to step up to the plate and run for office. And then continued that tradition when I found out this brand new seat was open. And when I was told about what the map looked like, and it was just the community that I grew up in, I couldn't help, and I just jumped at the chance to run, and obviously was successful there. So since I've been sworn in 10 months ago, yeah, it's been a whirlwind. It's been a very busy tenure. I have the privilege in serving on the Appropriations Committee. So if you're not familiar with what the Appropriations Committee does, it essentially looks and allocates the funds. So the state budget's a big part of that. I'm in hearings across the state all year round, but also at hearings that we're having in the building, which should be starting for the next budget soon. I also serve on local government. So if you're familiar with the city and some of its issues, a lot of it comes down, in my opinion, to the third-class city code. So the third-class city code is engraved into the Pennsylvania Constitution, and basically it tells us what municipalities can do. I believe there needs to be a lot of reform in that space so that places like Harrisburg, if you look at it, every third-class city in Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Erie, Lancaster, York, Harrisburg, they all have very similar issues. And when you get down to it, a lot of it's deeper systemic things. And I think we at the state, one of the reasons I wanted to run for this position was to introduce a reform package so that we could address some of these things to make it easier and give them more options for what they need to do to fix their problems. And then I'm also on human services, which, given my United Way background, I'm very excited about working on a lot of those issues. And then I was recently asked to serve as the vice chair of the Housing and Community Development Committee, which used to be Urban Affairs. So again, going back from my experience on council, it's been really nice to serve in that committee. And the big thing we're really looking to tackle is housing. Housing we're seeing across the state is becoming a huge, huge issue for folks. And I've worked on several pieces of legislation. So it was cool to see that you were talking about we are working a little too much. So I have some ideas there. I have a proposal for a pilot program similar to what was done in the United Kingdom to sample 60 to 80 businesses, give them a tax credit to try a 4-day work week, 32-hour work week for 3 years. And the Department of Labor and Industry would do a study and basically report back to the legislator on what they found on the pros and cons of a 4-day work week. And I workshopped it with Ryan at the chamber, and I didn't get kicked out. So no, but it was a good, robust conversation, and they gave me a lot of feedback, and I actually looked at some changes in the bill. So currently that's in the Labor and Industry Committee. So we'll be continuing to have those conversations around what that looks like. I also have a tenant landlord bill. So this I got because the mayor of Stilton approached me and her codes officers and said that there are, because of the lack of supply of housing and the high demand we're seeing in the region, there are, you know, like there's predatory lenders. Well, I call them predatory landlords. So essentially what they're doing is they're offering market rate housing. We're talking 1,000 or more a month, but the buildings we're finding are not habitable, or they should not be habitable. They should be condemned. But because people are so desperate, they're willing to live in these subpar conditions, and many of them are returning citizens or in poverty, and they're reluctant to let codes know or fight for their rights. So they're just begrudgingly living in these subpar conditions. And when we looked into it, there is a lot of support for the tenants, but there really isn't a lot to hold these landlords accountable. So the bill I have would strengthen teeth. If a landlord is renting out property that they know should not be habitable by a human being and should be condemned, stifter penalties and fees for them. And advocating for minority businesses. So right now in the medical marijuana space, we're seeing that a lot of the licenses are going to big corporations and out-of-state businesses, and not enough are going to local MWBEs. So I'm working on some legislation that would fix that and give minority-owned businesses more of an opportunity at marijuana licenses. And some of the things we were able to accomplish is street bikes. Illegal ATVs have been a big issue throughout the Harrisburg area. Me, Reps Kim Fleming, and our coalition worked. Essentially, legislation was introduced for Philadelphia to allow their law enforcement to proactively seize bikes and just restrict some of the red tape that it takes to do that. Initially, the bill was just going to be for Philadelphia. We made an amendment so it applied to cities like Harrisburg. So we're working with our law enforcement to make sure that we can seize illegal street bikes and ATVs. And this is one of the things I'm the most excited about, because Steelton is such a pleasure to represent. It is a small, scrappy town. My district office is in there, and you know, it's a post, or not a post. It is a mill town, so not necessarily spaces you're hearing doing a lot of innovative stuff around green technology. But if you didn't know this, Steelton is 100% powered by solar panels, their school district, and so that their success with that inspired a bill called Solar for Schools. So what we're trying to do is leverage state monies, federal dollars that got approved through the IRA, and work in conjunction with school districts to give them incentives to transition completely to solar. And so what Steelton's able to do with this is when they have surplus energy, they're able to sell it back to the grid and make money. And they're a fiscally distressed school district. So this innovation and this technology is saving them a ton of money on energy and also letting them gain some energy back and lowering their carbon footprint. So we're looking, that passed the House, Solar for Schools, and we're looking to get it done in the Senate. And I've had the privilege of taking policymakers to Steelton to tour the facility. They also have electric buses. And if you haven't been on an electric bus, they're pretty interesting because they don't make any noise. So like school buses, you're kind of used to like, brrr, and like it's just making a lot of noise. Electric buses are very, very quiet. So it's a little eerie to ride in one. But yeah, so looking ahead, I'm looking for my next term. I'm looking to focus on housing and inflation, increasing wages, lowering cost, fully funding our public schools, ensuring community safety, and collaborating with PennDOT on building robust green infrastructure. And before I close out and hopefully take some questions, I wanted to highlight one crucial point. As a state legislator, especially with current events and everything going on in the Middle East, I'm often asked to comment on divisive issues. This typically involves endorsing pledges, using a hashtag, and engaging in heated public forums, which I don't think is a good way of engaging and having these conversations. I never really did, but I certainly think it's divisive. as recent events have gotten, I think we have to find another way. And recently, an Atlantic article came out that said, what the best places in America have in common. And they noted that high-performing counties across the United States are rich in social capital, characterized by volunteerism, civic organization membership, and common community participation. And I believe too often, politicians, pundits, and social media influencers are dominating these conversations on these challenging issues. And I really think instead, a lot of these discussions should happen in places like this, or in churches, union halls, VFWs, grocery stores, bleachers, and yeah, if you can do it with your family at the Thanksgiving table or around the kitchen table. Because we have to find another way of civil discourse in this country and this community. And I believe that institutions like this and conversations like this you play a key role in doing that. Sorry. So as I give thanks to my family this Thursday, I'm going to be thankful for groups like this that allow civil discussion, and look forward to continuing to have a conversation with all of you. And just thank you so much for everything you do for the community.